Okay, we are recording.
Okay. So again, this is my main Python file for my Pulumi application. I define some metadata at the top here that I will reuse across my other resources. Then I'm creating my VPC for Google, and I will show what this class looks like in a second. But I'm defining, or rather using the project name, which comes from my configuration value. So for dev, in this case, I actually don't have a project name defined, so it's just going to use demo. And then I also have an owner that I don't have defined, so it's actually going to use my username from my laptop. And then I'm pulling in another configuration value for my CIDR blocks for my subnets, and that is defined with these two values. So these, my application will create two subnets, one with this CIDR block and one with a second one with this CIDR block. So I create the VPC, and then I define a server or a virtual machine, passing in a set of server arguments that are my service name, a metadata startup script or an install script, the ports for the firewall that I want to open, and then the subnet that I want the virtual machine to be deployed into as well, and then my metadata that I defined further up. And just to demonstrate how I can reuse this same server definition for a different type of service, I create a second, or define a second server with similar server arguments, but change a few of the values. So in this one, I actually define a different machine type. So I did not define a machine type up here, so it's going to use the default. In this, for my Apache 2 server, I define an N1 standard one machine type, and then a different install script as well. And then lastly, I'm exporting some values that will be shown in the output, or in the command line output from Pulumi. So before I show the details of the network and the server classes, I will show what this looks like to actually provision with Pulumi. So in Pulumi, a stack is an instantiation of your project. So a stack could be dev, QA, production, staging, etc. It could also be CL Stokes. It could be my own stack, depending on what I was doing. So to deploy this, I will run Pulumi up. And Pulumi up is going to compare my code that I've written to my environment and show me the changes that Pulumi is going to do before it actually does any changes. So this is called the preview step of Pulumi. And in this case, I have not created any of these resources yet. So it's telling me that it's going to create all of these from scratch, from zero. So you can see that when I define my VPC, my VPC actually includes the network, the two subnetworks, the router, and the router NAT. So just by defining this one high-level VPC class, it's actually including all these sub-resources, or the child resources of that VPC as well. And then same for my instance, just by defining this one high-level server resource, rather, it includes the address, the firewall, and the instance under that Nginx instance as well. So I'll hit yes to continue. So now Pulumi is going to call out to the Google Cloud API to create all of these different resources. And you can see it's in real time updating the command line output here to show its progress. So the addresses are already created. Now it's creating the VPC and the instances as well. So while that's running, I'll show the network class and the instance class as well. So in my network file, I define the VPC args class. So that just includes the subnet, CIDR blocks, as well as the metadata. And then I'm defining the VPC class as well. And this VPC class is using a component resource class that Pulumi provides that lets you, again, combine multiple low-level resources into this higher-level class. So again, for this VPC class, we're going to define the actual Google Compute Network. We're going to enumerate or iterate over the array of CIDR blocks that we have and create a subnet for each CIDR block. Then we're going to create our router and our router NAT. And you can see we're using references to the network in these other resources so that we're correctly defining the parent-child relationships.